Dermer, the Xavier beat writer for the Inquirer. Shelby, thanks for coming on. I'm sure you have nothing better to do. I'm sure it's been just a really slow week. Is that right?
Yeah, just a casual fly home from Milwaukee, and yeah, just kind of relaxing as the off season starts. And Coop, just to get one thing straight, you won't take the Xavier job if offered.
No, I will not.
Okay.
I wanted the Texas job.
Okay, that's what I figured. I just wanted a confirmation on that.
Yes, thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
no
A
problem.
lot of people have been asking that. So you have the scoop.
Gotcha.
But what's everything been like over, especially these last, 24, 48 hours? What are you hearing? What's the vibe been like?
Yeah, so obviously just some sarcasm in the front, but it has been super crazy. But you go from kind of the highest of highs from one Sunday to another if you're a Xavier fan, going from that Selection Sunday reveal and the jubilant celebration at Sean Miller's house to knowing that house will belong to someone else pretty soon. So yeah, I guess the rumors really started picking up in Dayton, and that's kind of, Adam Baum was on the beat when Sean Miller took Xavier to the Sweet 16 upon his return in 2023. So that was kind of new to me, where it started to come out that Sean and Texas were pretty close, or I should say that they may have had a deal together. If had Rodney Terry not won that game and taken the Longhorns to the Elite Eight to get his interim tag taken off, so there was, where there's smoke, there's fire type situation, and it moved pretty quickly. And after that, the Texas AD, Chris Del Conte, from reading about him, just where he wouldn't really make a final decision on a coach until he had someone ready in place. So it was like Texas is going to fire Rodney Terry basically an hour after they lost to Xavier at UD Arena, and then Thursday comes, Friday comes, and Saturday comes. Like, well, there's a lot of reports out, but I think he's still the coach. And then obviously Sunday happens, and it just snowballs from noon Eastern into kind of an all-nighter. So that was the kind of surprising and unsurprising thing about how it all unfolded.
I mean, we had I can't even remember who the first person was that told me, but they sent me the tweet. I can't even remember who put it out now, but it was the very first tweet that had it, and it was like they took that tweet. There was some validity to it, and everybody just ran with it. You had Fox 19, Field of 68, John Fanta. Everybody was saying it's done, and then you're just like, well, wait a second, it's not done. Like, Xavier hasn't said anything. I'm watching all the March Madness games. There's no breaking news. It was just it's very weird how the day laid out.
Yeah, you're right. And exactly right. Where like John Fanta had reported it, all these national media guys reported it, and then the rest of their feeds, the rest of their reporting is just about, obviously the NCAA tournament games are happening, so their hands are tied, and kind of everyone else is sitting in limbo, just kind of wondering is this real, is this not? So yeah, definitely a strange time, and certainly there was uncertainty, at least coming from the Xavier side of it.
Yeah, can we jump real quick? And I know that we're all going to comment on how we feel and all that kind of stuff, but I think what everyone wants to know right now is, Shelby, I'm sure you've been around and your phone's ringing off the hook, I'm sure. Can you just give us what the vibe is currently? Like, what's sticking out to you as of right now, 6 o'clock on Monday night?
Well, I was saying, like, there's smoke, there's fire, and I think that was right away with, as soon as it was announced, it was officially official, where it's Chris Mack seems to be the front runner right now. And I know maybe an hour ago, just looking at stuff, and it was, and I wrote down his name, Andrew Miller from the Charleston Post reported that Xavier had hired a search firm out of Atlanta, and that he confirmed Jeremy Rao's report from Fox 19 that there was mutual interest between Mack and Xavier, and that Mack is the front runner. Kind of, when I haven't been doing this long, but just looking at Xavier's track record and having not hired outside of Xavier ties since Thad Matta in 2001, it seemed like the writing's on the wall where Sean used Xavier as a launching pad to the Texas job. Chris Mack kind of the same way with Charleston. So that's kind of where we're at right now, where Chris Mack's the front runner.
Man, and Kenny, let's get your take on this. Obviously, you played for both coaches.
You look animated, yeah.
So, I mean, okay, so me and Mac, when I was in school, we did, whatever. It was whatever. We weren't always on the same page. But I've met with him. I've kind of made up with him a little bit, as far as, not that we were ever bad, but it just like, it was a strained relationship for a while. And I mean, honestly, the problem for me comes in when you look at a guy like Miller who came back, and I don't know, I guess like I've heard people saying that his return to Xavier was kind of like LeBron coming back to Cleveland. Like, you knew he wasn't going to be here forever, but it was just the way that he left. You know, LeBron won a championship for – shout out to Paul for this analogy, but LeBron won a championship in Cleveland, so he's good. He can go do whatever he wants now. The way that Miller left is the reason that everybody's, you know, so frustrated by it. And, you know, I consider Coach Miller to be a friend of mine, and I want him to be successful in everything that he does. It's so disappointing the way that it happened. I didn't think that it was going to be this year, but you know, here we are. It happened, and if Mack does come back, I mean, he obviously has a built-in fan base around him already. You're not going to have to sell a lot of people on Chris Mack. If he comes back, there's going to be instant buzz. You know, I don't think that the NIL money is going to suffer at all with a guy like Chris coming back. So, I mean, I think if you're able to kind of keep that continuity, my question, I guess, to him then would be like, how long are we doing this for? Because I don't want another 3-year stint, and then, you know, you're off to, I don't even know, UCLA or something. You know, it's like I want somebody that's going to be at Cintas with some type of continuity, because you can't have madness everywhere with the players and all the craziness of what they're going through with the NIL, and that's a whole nother question. And the transfer portal, that's a whole nother thing. But I just want some continuity somewhere in the Xavier program. And if Chris Mack's the guy that can do that, then bring him on.
I guess, too, I have a couple things, and I appreciate that perspective, Kenny. I think here's my next question, kind of to Shelby, is like, I saw someone ask in the chat. I'm sorry, Coop, I didn't see who it was, but this has to move quickly, right? Like, you've got to assume, it would not shock me at all if we have news breaking either tonight or tomorrow morning. Would not shock me at all.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, as we look at it right now, Xavier has – I got the roster on the wall. Is it 4 scholarship players?
Well,
left?
you heard the John Calipari quote when he went to Arkansas, like, I talked to the team, there is no team. Like, that's kind of fun right now.
Yeah, so, yeah, they've already lost – they've lost 3 players in the portals.
She's talking to no one.
Yeah, as we're recording right now, it was Trey Green, which wasn't a surprise. Dalen Swain, you're like, ugh.
It hurts, yeah.
Yeah.
At all, like.
Yeah, and then Cam Fletcher, obviously. So now, you know, exactly, that analogy is perfect with I talked to the team, there is no team.
Right.
Hey, you already lost 3, so the portal opens last night at midnight, and, yeah, there's no time to waste. Time's of the essence, and that's what Greg Christopher kind of said today, where he's like, you know, this search started immediately.
Yeah. I love that. And I do want to address one thing. This is a little off the beaten path. The Drum Hunter fan club, who I'm a huge fan of, he asked, is it true that Sean left because of the competition with the Roll Blob podcast? Absolutely not. There's no validity to that. I just want to squash that rumor before we go any farther here.
People were wondering.
So just wanted to.
Can I just say, like, that one of my favorite parts of the winning streak in Xavier's run to the NCAA tournament was just, okay, they won. I'm going to check Twitter and, like, save all the funniest tweets. And you guys were obviously in there too. And then just, like, the next day showing my fiance, who just has no idea, like, what any of this means. Like, Brian O'Connell memes with the blue blob in the back. And she, and I was like, yeah, this mascot was on a soap opera a couple years ago. And she's like, oh, that's from Xavier? I was like, yeah. It's just like, so she was a good sport about it. But, like, I just want to say, like, Twitter was amazing, just as good as the play on the court over the last month of the season.
Whenever there is like an all hands on deck, like Xavier Twitter moment, like and don't get me wrong, this is not the most fun thing ever, but I feel like we do make it pretty fun. And shouts to, and I think that's one thing, Kenny, that I'm excited about too, is like, this is my perspective, I guess, is like, does this suck? Yeah, of course this sucks. This is never ideal to lose a coach this late in the game and have to go through all this portal nonsense, cut the whole roster, maybe whatever. But I guess for me, it's like I've been a Xavier fan as long as my memory goes back. I'd say since 1997 when I was like 5. I've been loyal to the soil, okay, since 1997. And I guess for me, it's like Xavier has navigated much more adversity than this. Like, so for us to be acting like, oh, this is the end of the world, it's like we're in the Big East with some of the best facilities in the country. Like, we're going to do a national search. Like, if it is Chris Mack, he's a big-time coach. Like, this isn't the end of the world for Xavier basketball. Does it suck? Absolutely. I think Sean Miller's a big-time coach.
Yeah.
But to act like, oh, we're never going to come back from this, or this is some cataclysm, like, guys, like, we're not new to this. We're true to this. All right. This is not – Xavier's been through so much more than – like, we navigated the A-10. We navigated – like, we've been through so many different things. So – and you look at the fan base, you look at that environment in the Texas game. I mean, you see how much care there is for this program. And I guess this was just my perspective, and we don't have to dive into this. But for me, my question was when Sean left was, Was it a Sean chasing a bag, which it doesn't seem like the money is that different, or was it a I have differences of opinion with the administration? And maybe we don't need to dive into that, but I guess that was my initial thought because he's getting a lot of backlash.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
But,
I think that it's weird because all the stuff that we hear and like a lot of my knowledge about the administration comes from just looking at Twitter and people complaining about it. I don't have a very firm grip on that stuff. I know that there is problems, but I mean, I'm sure that there's problems everywhere. But I don't know. Shelby, that might be more of a question for you.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really speak on what. I have a good relationship with a lot of people at Xavier.
Yeah, I mean,
but
I guess that was just and we didn't need to comment on that. I guess that's just kind of I think what I'm hearing from the fan base. But I guess just going forward though, it's like I assume it's going to happen quickly. Nothing would shock me. I think we're on a minute by minute basis and I don't know. And I also want to shout out Rick Browning. I know he's been covering this like crazy on his board, and I know he does a lot of work. So I don't want to and I'm not stealing anything from him. And he's a friend, but he'd be like, Cap, he's like, I don't care. But I guess too, like this is going to move quickly. It has to move quickly because portal time, like I think Kenny was talking about this. Oh, a day is a week in the portal.
Yeah.
We got to move.
And so this is the thing for me. The timing of it is the biggest problem. And I don't necessarily like the coaches that like all of the coaching changes that happen, 3 weeks before the NCAA tournament. They're like, all right, we're getting rid of this guy. We need to bring somebody in. But it does end up giving you more time. And obviously that wasn't a choice for Xavier because they were in the tournament. But so the timing of it with the transfer portal and where we're at right now with, I don't know what Xavier's NIL situations look like. I know that Final 2% does a lot and they have, lots of memberships and all that stuff. And that's constantly coming in. So I would assume that they have at least a plan or a concept of a plan moving forward. But the part for me that is interesting is with Miller going to Texas. I think that Texas probably looked at him and said like, hey, we're going to give you $10 million this year in NIL money. Maybe even more. It might be an unlimited number because they may have a donor that's just like, we want to win a championship here. And like, let's just say next year they lose in the round of 32 and he had $12 million in NIL. The next year he's not getting $12 million again. And if you're getting $10 million the next year and you lose in the Sweet 16, you're not getting $12 million again. You know what I mean? Like
you're right. It's a year by year game.
It's going the goals and what you want the team to do is going to go up every year, and the money is going to slowly go down. And let's not get this twisted at all. Texas has been and always will be a football school. Like I don't know the pressure of that job, and I don't think that it's necessarily to say I don't think he can do it, but winning a national championship is very difficult, and you can't just buy it. So, if they're going to give him all this money and he goes and he loses in the round of 32, Sweet 16, maybe makes an Elite Eight, are they going to look at that and be like, yeah, that $40 million that we gave him over the last 3 years in NIL money was worth it? I don't think that they will.
That was one of the things that surprised me just off the move because Sean would repeatedly go back to how nice it is for the basketball program that Xavier didn't have football. And, he'd talk about, I have also the schedule on my wall. The Jackson State game was November 12th. I think that was a Tuesday at 8:30, and that place was rocking. That's how he opened his presser. Like, not a lot of schools have that.
Right.
We have that. We have an on-campus arena that's right here where students can walk to from campus, and they pack this place at 8:30 on a school night when a lot of people across college sports obviously focused on football at that time. So, Kenny, I just wanted to make that point just because you mentioned the Texas being a football school and just with Texas history of coaches, it's like for Rodney Terry, like how many schools would have signed up for an Elite Eight and 3 straight NCAA tournament runs and then you're out the door and he's been a part of the NCAA tournament how many times over a decade plus at Texas? So
we just lost Coop and Cat, but they'll be right back. This Streamlabs it really makes me angry. I got to find a new solution for next year.
You're good.
But
and then go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say that the problem for me is that there's going to be so much, and I can't even give a prediction of what it's going to be, right? The changes that are going to come from NIL, how revenue sharing is going to affect schools. I don't even know what that looks like, and I don't think anybody really does yet, because there's going to be some type of change to NIL at some point. There has to be.
Right.
So when those things happen and the playing field levels out a little bit more, Xavier is a much better job than Texas, in my opinion.
I've heard that argument. I heard that today by national media today, was like, is Texas a much better job than Xavier? Like, and I think that's the thing for me as a fan that is a little bit different, because I think every other time a Xavier coach left to go, it was like a huge jump. You know what I mean? Like Motto went to Ohio State, huge jump. Miller goes to Arizona way back in the day, massive jump. Even when Mack went to Louisville, that's a sizable jump and a huge increase in pay. Okay. I don't think his salary is, I heard about $500K different from what I know.
Yeah.
Now the NIL could be a huge jump. And this is just the things that we just don't know. It's a wild, wild west situation. And Kenny, I think you've talked about this. The market has not corrected on NIL yet. There's so much we don't know. It is a complete gold rush kind of situation where there's just like numbers are just being thrown everywhere. Like it's just wild. So it's like, we don't know. But here's what I will say though. It's interesting when Miller initially left, or when the Mack stuff was going on with Louisville. From what we had heard, Miller had told Mack, like, the grass is not always greener. And you talk about coming home, you talk about all this stuff, and then it's 3 years later, and we're here. And it's like, because it's one thing, I don't know, you joined to come on, and there had to be a lot of conversations to make that happen. It's like, it's only been 3 years, so where was the gap in communication in that short amount of time? So it's a little bit confusing. And Kenny, this is where I'm just going to look for the future here. But you talked about we want continuity. I think continuity is great. But if I'm being honest, the Wild Wild West is not going to stop anytime soon, in my opinion. I think we're looking at a year by year, who knows kind of situation. So for me, I think Mack is going to win, and I'm just go get a winner. And to me, if we're doing this in 3 or 4 years, I would much rather do that. And I think we've seen some who will go for the continuity piece. I'm not going to name any names here. And then they have an underwhelming hire, and now you're in a tough spot. Because you're not winning and your program takes a big step back. So I think Mack will win. I would much rather have a winner for a few years and leave than someone who stays and it's underwhelming and Xavier falls back into obscurity. That's me.
So Shelby, I would like to get your thoughts on this, because I've been having conversations with people over the past couple of days, just obviously about Miller, but then just getting into what NIL is doing to college basketball. And I truly believe that the players should be paid. They make a lot of money for schools. They're the NCAA's biggest product. So my question is like, when you have a tournament like this that all these people are complaining about, there's no buzzer beaters, there's no Cinderellas, there's no upsets. I have to imagine that correlates to TV ratings going down. And if that happens, the NIL rules and guide rails are coming a lot faster than you think, in my opinion.
Well, it just stinks to give you a no answer, but I think Paula mentioned it in your live last night, where it's not corrected and it might never be corrected, just because they don't want the NCAA or NCAA players to be contract employees.
Yeah.
So
the more hands off, the better. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's that?
The more hands off they can be, the better. The less red tape. I'm happy with that. That's what they want.
Right.
Yeah, so I agree too that the players should be paid. And Kenny, you just mentioned that, but and I was kind of wondering your guys' take on that with the NCAA buzzer beaters and like no Cinderellas. So I was kind of glad you brought that up.
It's just been a weird tournament. We watch all these games, and the biggest upset that we had was Colorado State, and they were favored in the game.
Right.
It's just like, so not even an upset, but just seed-wise. So, that's what has always made college basketball so fun to watch, and just like bringing in fans. When I was playing, it was like we were playing for a school, and we started to love that school after, by the time I graduated from Xavier, like from that moment on, it was there was never an option. Like, I love Xavier and I'll always be a Xavier fan. But I don't think that you're going to, and this is not disrespectful or disrespecting anybody, because it's just different. But like, you look at a guy like Conwell, and he had a great year this year. Let's say even if he comes back one more for another year, which who knows, I don't think he's going to look back at Xavier and be like, yo, that's my squad. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, it's just a different feeling now. And when you lose that from college basketball, a lot of it's a lot of its allure just goes away with it.
Well, that's why Zach was such a unicorn, right?
Yeah.
And the dunk in Dayton was just so storybook. Even though I said storybook in the press conference, he's like, "Well, I wouldn't say storybook. We should have won by more."
Yeah.
But
I like that. I guess, Shelby, I guess you've heard, apparently you were listening to the live yesterday, all of us degenerates screaming into microphones and playing music and being stupid. Was there anything like stuck out to you that maybe you would have insight on, or you didn't agree with, or did agree with, you thought stood out that, fans were kind of clamoring about?
So the only thing would be centered obviously around Chris Mack and just kind of how his Louisville tenure ended. And, you mentioned earlier in this podcast where Sean maybe said the grass isn't always greener. And, I wasn't around for that, so I don't know. But and maybe it was where, Louisville, I think, was ranked by Forbes as like one of the top 5 most valuable college programs. A lot different when you're at a private Catholic university in Cincinnati where Chris Mack, maybe not the most flamboyant, outgoing, friendly coach. I remember reading an article about him at Big East meetings where he kind of just beat to his own drum, I think is a good way to say it. Sorry, I had a low power on my phone. So, and then the things he did at Louisville, where first year he goes to the NCAA tournament, the second year they were AP #1 for a few weeks, probably trending towards a 4 or 5 seed if you look back at 2020 bracketology before that tournament gets canceled by the pandemic. So how's Chris Mack's tenure at Louisville, and is there any stink on the end of his tenure at Louisville if Louisville goes on a Elite 8 run, which was very possible in 2020? And then in 2021, you have 11 games canceled because of COVID, and they're 13-7. They're the last team left out of the tournament. So I just think, yes, you could have some concerns with, hey, the last time, Mack was the coach at Xavier, his team walked off the court as a #1 seed that had its heart ripped out in Nashville, and that'll bring out donors and give excitement there with all those fond memories. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with Chris Mack, kind of weighing the pros and cons. I know it's kind of a moving target, and there's no right or wrong answer, but just knowing he's kind of trending towards being that front runner, as a couple people have reported with mutual interest, it's kind of hard to ignore.
I think you're right.
Yeah,
and that's the thing. Like, there's no single metric that you can just. So I mean, you're looking at what's going to be the most important for the administration at Xavier, and I think that one of those things that's really going to move the needle is just that he is a Xavier guy through and through, and it's as we've seen, like you said, with their history, that's what they're going to do. So I mean, I'm not saying that it's going to be him, but man, it seems like at this point the ball is going. It's kind of like what happened with Miller. Like they were just like, he's there, he's doing it, and then it was just like done 6 hours later. So
there's no
it's like Groundhog Day.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, exactly. But
who was the Groundhog Day?
Hey.
It's not here. It's not here.
Eyeball emojis right there.
Literally.
But,
as reported by Shelby on the Roll Blob podcast.
Yeah, but
right.
Little segue here, and Shelby will let you go in just a minute. But obviously, Chris Mack's the front runner. It seems like based on everything that we've seen. Is there anything else or anybody else's name that you're hearing come up a lot?
Well, Luke Murray, I kind of just alluded to that, just kind of keeps coming up everywhere you look. Not really anything concrete yet, but another guy with Xavier ties. I mean, it kind of narrows down your search and what your carousel looks like when you haven't hired outside of Xavier with Xavier ties in over 2 decades. So Luke Murray, I guess, again, a moving target, and there's no single metric like you said, Kenny, but a guy who's had so much success with Dan Hurley at 4 different stops going back to, and he worked with Sean Miller too at Arizona, worked with Chris Mack here at Xavier, and by all reports, he's kind of the spearhead brainchild of a really complex offense that Dan Hurley runs, and he was played a big role into the development of some front court players for the Huskies, Sonogo and Klingon, over the last couple of years. So I think that's definitely the one that seems to be getting the most traction right now.
And they've been pretty good. I'm a casual fan, but UConn's been all right.
Yeah.
My mom picked him to go to the Final Four. She didn't know anything. So
we just had somebody on. I think maybe it was when we were talking to Gordon. He was just like, people are just going to pick them because they just remember that they're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's like picking Georgia or Alabama in football. You know, it's
You're just
yeah,
picking
they're probably good.
don't overthink
but,
it, guys. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think it is interesting. I guess my final thoughts are Chris is a winner, and I will say this: I think in college basketball now, though, I think Chris is also a big personality. I think he's gonna bring. I'm saying gonna. I don't know anything. I don't know, but if we were to get Chris, I think he brings a big game atmosphere. He brings a big personality. Like he is one. I just don't think like Chris Mack comes in and it's like,
right.
like if Chris Mack comes in, it's gonna be jumping. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't, I'm a fan, so I have that perspective. But it will be fun. Get your popcorn ready.
Dude,
Sorry, Kenny.
Yep.
Before I get off, I wanted to ask you guys, just because I haven't been immersed in Xavier basketball as long as you guys have. So, like, what was the feeling of the fan base now compared to before Sean was hired the second time? Was it more of like you guys were so ready to turn the page from Travis that there was so much optimism in the next hire, or was it similar to what you're feeling today?
It was way different. So
Yeah.
for me, at least, it was weird. It was right during the NIT run. They let Travis coach the first NIT game against Cleveland State. We went to it. It was the emptiest Centos Center has ever been for a men's basketball game. I mean, it was less than Musketeer Madness. It was
Wow.
It was embarrassing. It really was. We were sitting courtside. That's how bad it was. But
that bad.
It was that bad. It was terrible.
It was ugly.
But I was someone who wasn't really ready to give up on Travis Steele, and usually I just am that way with my team's coaches. I feel like consistency wins. And he was a great recruiter. He was on the bubble every single year, and one of those years was COVID. So I was ready to, keep him for a little bit longer. But whenever there's the possibility of Sean Miller becoming your head coach, it's like, okay, yeah, we have to do this now. If we miss it, he's going to go to South Carolina in that case. So whenever it was Sean Miller, it was a completely different feeling. We were nowhere. We weren't making the tournament.
Right.
And then Sean comes in, and then it's like a rebirth. It's like, okay, this is going to work. He was great at Arizona. He's back at Xavier. The ceiling's really high now. So that it was, for me at least, it was way different.
So we went down as a group. We went to the game, to the Georgetown game, and Miller was there. He was in one of the loges up there, and it was a bunch of Xavier basketball guys. We all came back, and we went up and we were talking to him and stuff. And at that point, there was nothing official, but we all knew what was going on. But just from that point that you bring up though, and Miller coming back and the feeling of all the coaches leaving. Has anything like this ever happened with another university before, where you're losing a coach, bringing back an old coach, you lose that coach and bring back another old coach? I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing, but to me it feels like it's more like that's how invested people are in Xavier basketball. If Miller didn't feel, and I know he had things going on, but if he didn't feel some type of connection to come back to the city, he had other places he could have gone. And come back to Xavier, it really does show that level of commitment that the Xavier basketball brotherhood has for each other.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I completely agree.
But Shelby, we'll let you go. I'm sure you've got a lot to cover, and your phone's probably blowing up and everything, and you're already on low power. But we appreciate you coming on and sharing the insight. Definitely follow Shelby if you don't already. With everything going on, everything's minute to minute. Shelby does a great job covering it.
You.
Read his articles, retweet them if that's still repost them, whatever that's called.
React them.
No, seriously. Thanks for jumping in the muck, man. We appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Thanks for having me.
Of
we
course,
appreciate you, man. Jumping in that soil, baby.
Yeah,
jumping in that soil. So Kenny, that was cool to have Shelby on. By the way, that was cool.
Somebody that actually knows something.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of us. So Kenny, you can confirm that your phone you've not been offered any jobs.
Not yet, no.
Not yet. Okay.
I'm still waiting on my call for the GM job, but
okay.
Yeah.
Imagine letting the Blob boys in Cintas. No, but Kenny, what are your thoughts after talking to Shelby, and we can start getting into some chat stuff?
I mean, pretty much just exactly what I thought. I think that you're gonna, if you have a guy sorry, I'm getting the all this stuff set up.
Template back. Yeah.
Oh, you're good.
But there we go. All right, I can be done now. If you're talking about Matt coming back, I don't know. I keep going back and forth on it, man. Because I do think I think that if he's going to come back and show a commitment to Xavier and say, like, I want to be here for a long time, and also that he's even like if Xavier's his last stop, like how much longer do you want to coach for? Number one,
Right.
and
That's a good one.
how like if a Texas or a team like that comes knocking, are you gonna be out the door?
Because that's the thing that sucks, Kenny, is literally this is what Miller said 3 years ago.
Right.
Is like, I'm coming
wanna
home,
get in
like
it
this
again.
is it. Literally, Mack told the Louisville people, this is Coach Mack's last stop. I just saw the video of like when he took them, he's like, this is Coach Mack's last stop. You're not gonna see me coaching anymore. It's like you can say this, but you know how quickly things can change. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because you know how quickly things can change. So say whatever the heck you want to say. It's at this point, you're a Xavier fan. You've been broken up with every 4 to 7 years your entire life. Like,
right.
And stayed friends with your exes.
and stayed friends with your exes. Like,
That's what I'm saying. Like it's such a unique situation to even be talking about.
It is 100%. The one thing I think though, and Chris Mack and just like Sean Miller when he got hired, there were fans that were so against it that said they're not going to give $1 to the university. They're not going to renew their season tickets. It was a very polarizing hire. And I think a lot of people kind of, came to terms with it and changed their stance on that. But there were some people that never did. And that's going to be the same with Chris Mack. He's a very polarizing guy. There's people that really dislike him. There's people that really like him too. But I think if Xavier wants to keep any sort of momentum for next year and win, and you look at Chris Mack's track record, I mean, he's going to get Xavier to the NCAA tournament more times than not.
He's going to win.
He's going to.
He's going to win.
I think that's where it's going to lean. But, that's all just based on what we know. I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting to just see how everything's handled. And if you're Xavier, and from a fan's perspective, each time with it being Chris Mack, then Sean Miller, and maybe Chris Mack again, it's like we need one guy to just stay at Xavier for 10 plus years, because that's what's going to win. That's how it always is in college basketball, is a college basketball coach staying loyal to his team, building a program, getting his kind of guys each year, building his staff. You can't just rotate guys in and out all the time and then jump ship. It's going to take consistency to win. We thought it was going to be that with Sean Miller. It wasn't. If Chris Mack comes by, the only thing that I could say is he played for Xavier. He's been through a lot of stuff. I would like to think he's going to stay, but we don't know.
Right.
I feel like you're being naive,
impossible.
So real quick,
say.
Jimmy asked about thoughts about Dante being the head coach, and I have a really good relationship with Dante. Obviously, I played with him for a couple years. I don't even know. Like, it would be interesting to hear his thoughts on it, because I don't even know from his perspective if he feels like he would be ready for it or want it yet.
Feels like a big jump.
Yeah, and I think that he's definitely on that trajectory to do it.
I'm not saying
100%.
never. Yeah,
Right.
I'm not saying he. Yeah,
I was
right
talking
now.
I was talking to Paul about it. I think that when Mack took over for Miller, he was like 40.
So I was just looking at this. So Mack was an assistant at Xavier from 99 to 01, followed Skip to Wake Forest from 2001 to 2004. Came back as an assistant from 04 to 09, and then became the Xavier head coach from 09 to 2018. So and from what I remember, Xavier always had an associate head coach role. Yeah. And so that was kind of like the coach in waiting role, which I think Pat Kelsey was for some period of time.
He was.
And Travis was for a long time under Mack. But he was the associate head coach for some time, if I remember correctly. Yeah. I would not say that.
What I'm saying is when he took over as the head coach, he would have been like either 40 or 41, somewhere in that range. Yeah. And Dante right now is probably Dante's probably 37. That would be really young for the head coach of a Big East basketball.
And we hired a young coach a couple years ago.
Yeah.
I guess for me, if it's me, like, I just don't think Xavier is in a place right now where the landscape is crazy, all this stuff. There's so much uncertainty. Right. I feel like you have to get a proven. And I'm not saying Dante won't be a great coach, a great head coach someday. Like, I love Dante to death. But I feel like you can't miss. I feel like we cannot afford to miss right now. And Mack, in my opinion, will win. He will win. But here's my question today, though, Kenny, is like, Mack left coaching, and it seemed like he was just loving, like, being out of coaching. From what I going fishing, all that kind of stuff, and getting checks in the mail from Louisville.
$133,000 a month. I mean, I'm gonna love whatever I'm doing.
Pretty good mailbox money.
Yeah.
But my thing is, Charleston seems like a safe place where it's like expectations, I'm sure, are quite a bit lower. It's Charleston. It's a great place to live.
Dude,
like
when I went out there, he's got it made out there, dude.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's low key a vacation job, kind of. Like you leave a Xavier where it's like you have to win all the time and everything's got like.
And freaking Pat Kelsey grew that Charleston program to the point where, like, I would say that the Charleston program is probably where Xavier was in like the early 2000s or maybe the late 90s, where it's like
you're right.
They're gaining that momentum. They have it's a smaller arena. They sell out every game. There's tons of, and then on top of it, you're living in Charleston, which is, like you said, just insane place to live. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if he was like, listen, guys, like,
I don't know if I want to do that. And it's like he's made his money. Like,
and it's a lot of pressure, dude. It's a lot
this
different.
This job has got to be not very. Dude, I don't know about you guys. I'm exhausted. Yeah. Can you imagine like being like the AD right now? Like,
yeah, but this is what I brought up. Can you imagine going through all of this? And then you're like, okay, nice. I got the Xavier job. Now I need to go filter through 500 people in the portal to build a full team.
Yeah, you are way behind. Like, you needed to start 2 weeks ago. Like, you're way behind. So, like, like you're leaving an awesome job in an awesome city and low pressure. He's probably still making decent money, and it's like he needs the money anyway.
No, but I will say though, just knowing him, like, he's not gonna back down from a challenge. So I'm not saying that the pressure's too much for him. I'm just saying that, like, he's living a comfy one over there right now. Like that job is. Yeah,
it's
how crazy would it be if he came and brought Lazar back?
We were talking about that earlier.
It's not possible. Lazar is in the portal.
It probably happens.
Lazar is in the portal.
The Lazar 2.0.
Oh, is he not allowed to come back?
Jason Carter went back.
I thought you just said it's not possible.
No. He's in the portal. I said it's not impossible.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
I will say, I saw a tweet. This was a long time ago. I think during the Steel era, and someone said the Musketeer Madness, Chris Mack walking out to Return of the Mack is going to go so hard, and then at that time, like in 2028 or something like that. Yeah. Like, I'm sorry. Like, it's funny because a week ago I was like if you had told me this was going to be happening, I'd be like, I don't know. But like now that we're here. Like, what else are we going to do?
You got to make the best of it, you know.
And I will say, the best 4-year stretch in Xavier basketball history is the Trayvon JP 4-year run. Mm-hmm. Like, you go to the Sweet 16, you're a 2 seed the next year, then an Elite 8, then a 1 seed. I never thought I'd see Xavier get a 1 seed. Yeah. The 2 seed was like, oh my god. So I mean, he will win, and it's going to be fun. Like,
did you guys happen to go to the game when I was in school where he rode out on a motorcycle?
Yes.
Wow.
I do remember that.
Can you imagine him doing that with Return of the Mack playing?
Ooh.
Dude, because you can get on the phone with him and we can pitch out ideas. Like, dude, you got to think too. This is big for the brand.
Yeah.
This is big for the brand.
Yeah.
Like, let's get in there, whatever. But anyway, we can definitely talk ideas, and I like having the degree of separation from Chris Mack.
Yeah, for sure. But obviously we're just speculating, like, as if he did take the job. I have 2 questions. First of all is, why are some people so against Luke Murray? Like, obviously he's not a head coach right now. I get that. But there's people like, I don't know. I'll have to find it in the chat that said I'm not going to the games next year if Luke Murray's the head coach.
So I think that Cap pretty much already answered the question before. We weren't talking about it, but exactly what you said when you're like, you need somebody that's going to be able to come in and deal with this landscape. And, like, I'm not saying that he wouldn't do a good job because I don't really know too much about him. But going out and hiring somebody from the outside, which he has some connection, but he would be considered an outsider at this point, I think. Bringing him into this situation, having to rebuild a whole team, I think that there's people that just don't have the confidence that they have in Mack that they would have. You know what I mean? They don't have the confidence in Luke that they would have in Mack.
I'll also say this right now. It feels like – remember when all the Miller smoke was happening and you're like, oh, here we go. Like, it looks like, just from from my perspective, all signs are pointing to this being a Chris Mack thing. Like, I would say that's where everything is pointing. That's just what it looks like.
Yeah, and in the chat, Xavier Royer says Travis Steele burnt people out on assistant coaches. They forget Mack and Miller were both assistant coaches, I guess. Fair point. Yeah. And then A lot of people saying Mack is tough as nails, reminds me of a true West Sider. Broke with the 0 says that. He wants to play tough and strong D. Ahmad says, agreed. Mack being an a-hole is what I love about him. All that. But Kenny, this was my second question. You, of course, started your Xavier career with Sean Miller, and then the final 3 years with Chris Mack. What's the biggest difference as a player having those two guys run the program?
There was zero difference in what they ran and like how they coached. I was talking about this before. Like this all started back with Pete Gillen. I mean, all the way through him, like all of these coaches that have come up, they're all kind of like in that same net where when you go to it's just like little things with how you do your shoot around, the schedule of it. Like I bet you that the shoot arounds now are probably the same exact way they were when I was there because they all learned it from the coach before them. And that line started at Pete Gillen. So like, and that's like from then until now, it's all been from that, you go pilling whatever, but like, you're in the like before we leave for games, you're in the hotel and we would always go over underneath out of bounds plays. And every single coach that I knew there, it was like their thing that they would tape a key on the floor, like in a conference room and do that. And like, that was the same. Miller and Mack did the same exact thing. There was a lot of similarities in the way that they coach. So I think that they've obviously had a lot more experience now in ways to like change their styles and all that stuff. But I think that bringing him in would be, I don't know, man. I want to get this thing done. Like I want to know who it is.
That's the thing. I will say it's hard for me to play. I hear a lot of the angle of you want consistency and people that are going to be here for a long time. At this point, I'm done thinking that's going to happen, especially if they've already left you once before.
Right.
Like it was like with Miller, like everyone's like, he literally already did this. It's like, I'm not here to hate on Miller at all. Like I think he won at a high level. And okay, like that's great. You know what I mean? Like if he had sucked, it's kind of a different conversation. Like,
sure,
are we in better shape now than we were when he started? Yeah, in my opinion.
Hey, if Xavier doesn't make the NCAA tournament this year, if they don't go on that 7-game win streak, who knows what the conversation's like?
Yeah,
maybe he doesn't get the Texas job, to be fair, but I don't know.
I think they've been eyeing him for a long time, from what I can hear.
From what I've understood,
But I guess what I'm just trying to say is like, if it's Chris Mack, man, let's run this thing up. It's gonna be a popcorn situation, man. Be a popcorn situation.
Yeah.
But and it just does suck. Here's another angle for me. It just sucks because I just love this community too. And I really think that, I'm just going to be honest, I do think that Sean did kind of plead the homecoming thing and
right.
The Sean Miller podcast and all that stuff.
That is my biggest issue with the whole thing is that.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I'm not going to sit here and get negative about Miller. I don't have it in me to do it. If I was, it would have been when I was playing and he left after he recruited me for 4 years and promised me that he was going to be my coach. Yeah. If I was going to be angry at him, I would have been angry at him a long time ago.
Yep.
But that's the only issue that I have with this is like, if he feels like he has a better chance to win a national championship there, if he feels like it's a better situation for him, his family, whatever, that's fine with me. But all of the all-in stuff and this is my home, all that stuff, that's the part that like when I put out that tweet, like I'm disappointed and I didn't think it was going to happen. Like that's the stuff that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about him actually the leaving part of it. But
it's like we did all of like the former player jersey stuff. You bring 2 back, like I'm just like, and then the next year, bro, the next off season.
Yeah.
It just kind of sucks. But I mean, it is a business when people forget that. I guess for me though, if it's been 6 or 7 years and you've done your thing and we're balling and you did the thing here at Xavier and you did great and Kentucky comes knocking, Indiana comes knocking, okay, fair play, But year 3, when we did the family stuff, the all-in stuff, the Sean Miller podcast, bring back all the former players, really, really go all in.
Yeah, it was that infrastructure that he put in place. I mean, literally infrastructure in building a house, but then like all of the Sean Miller stuff, like all the Sean Miller podcast stuff, and just like really feeling like he's building something here that
Right.
is gonna
Like,
it would be tough to walk away from. That was the feeling that I got from him.
Right.
And that's why it was such a disappointing day yesterday. Like
I
I was in shambles yesterday, man. Like the whole day. I was like,
I can only imagine.
I was riding home from Dayton. I'd stayed an extra night to hang out with one of my buddies, and we went golfing and stuff. But I'm riding back in my buddy's car, and it happened, and I was just like, the NCAA games were on, and I couldn't even bring myself to watch them. I was just sitting in the car like, man, this sucks.
It does just suck. And I think for us too, man, it's like, we are not just media. Like, this is like, we love this, and like, we're part of this community, and like, literally, like, Coop is like my best friend. You know what I mean? Like, Paul and Adam are like, Adam and I talk all the time. That's like my friend. You know what I mean? And like, they really, their name was the Sean Miller podcast.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it affects so much more than one person, and just our community. And I hate seeing Xavier constantly the door that's always we're good enough to come back to and build my career back up, and then you're good enough to leave.
Yeah.
Like, we deserve better, man. Like, our fan bases deserve better. Look how much we showed out, for honestly a team that disappointed all season, and a coach that already had done us dirty before.
Dude, it's
just to be honest,
it's crazy, man. The level of support from the Xavier community through all of that is just, it's wild, man. That's something for me that when you talk about, like, Fremantle said loyal to the soil, and like just the way that I felt before when I left, like I was gonna be a Xavier fan and in this forever. So,
well, that's the thing, Kenny. You come back too, and you at Dana's is like being with a rock star, like, and we just love our own, and that's one thing that's been really cool seeing you come back into the fold. Is like, I'm sure you see that, like, how much you are beloved for your time here. Well,
and so Royer just brought up the question, any comments on the hiring search firm? It feels weird if Mack is bagged and tagged as a just a contingency. When he brought that up, that they hired a search firm, I guess I didn't know what the process was, but I figured it was just like, Xavier had like an agent or something that would call other agents. I didn't realize you went and hired somebody to find you a coach.
I don't know. I don't know what the process is like either, but I now have a new dream job, and that's being on a member of the Roll Blob podcast, but also a search firm guy.
A search firm.
Like, I don't know. Have you thought about whoever? Like, I can do that.
I can
definitely do that.
Yeah, I can get you a job in Austria if you want it.
I can work remote.
Right.
But I do think like I said, Xavier's navigated much tougher waters before. Like, if it is Chris Mack and it looks like things are looking in that direction, he's a winner. Yeah, like, he's going to win. You know what I mean? And it's going to be fun too. Like, he's also not a coach where it's like, we're going to like, no one's going to, I don't know how to say it, like, out a-hole Chris Mack. Like, he's not going to back down from Hurley. He's not going to back down from anybody. Like, it's going to be fun too.
I could legitimately see Matt getting into a fight on national TV with Dan Hurley.
Can you imagine those post-game pressers? Like, after like a barn burner with UConn? Like, I will say this, I did love Chris Mack's post-game pressers.
Oh, yeah.
Like, after the shootout, he just comes up, we got our asses kicked on the glass. That's it. Mm-hmm. Like, he's fun. Like, he does the social media stuff. Like, remember we got the Big East championship? He does like the big selfie with everyone in the background. Like, it's absolute cinema. Absolute cinema. So we'll see. I guess one of my big questions too is, like, we talked about it, we alluded to it earlier. Like, is he ready to really be back in the pressure pit?
I don't even, and I'm going to go away from the pressure thing. I don't think the pressure is, I don't think that would affect his decision at all. But I do think that, like, I think he's definitely going to talk to him. He's going to go through the entire process, and he's going to sit down with his family, and he's going to be like, do we want to move back to Cincinnati when we have this nice ass house in Charleston? Like, I mean, it does go into it, man. Like, I love the city of Cincinnati, but Charleston's one of my favorite places in the entire world. That city is incredible. So,
it's a small list of places I'd rather live. I'll tell you that.
Right.
So I guess I think we've kind of covered it. I guess at this point we can kind of start going into some fan questions if they have them. I feel like I've said my piece.
We got I think we got like 10 more minutes. So
yeah, I agree. But Great to have Shelby on, and I love that we get to do this stuff. Like, I love that we get to like have these honest conversations and be here for the fans and stuff. Because
So
I don't know, I've been refreshing my feed all day.
Royer just asked if there's any other schools hitting up Mack right now. I
guess it'd be probably not.
I mean, I don't know if the answer to that's yes or no, but I would guess that he would probably only entertain. I mean, there's other schools he would entertain, but I don't think those schools are necessarily coming for him right now. So I would say that Xavier's probably the only one that could get him off the couch.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think the only other suitors that'd be calling Mack would not be on Xavier's level. I assume.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
I have heard his name floating around for Villanova.
Really?
I mean, nothing concrete, but just like that.
Sure sounds like it's going to be Willard at Nova.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like when they people are putting out lists, I've been seeing Mack's name on the list. Somebody asked earlier if anybody reached out to Brad Stevens. It's like if Brad Stevens didn't take the Indiana job.
Have we called Coach K?
Yeah, right. You got to make the call. I think Jay Wright's trying to get out of TV.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Has Billy Donovan been contacting?
Right.
You go through all the normal guys that aren't coming.
I mean, might as well just throw Jim Tressel in there.
Yeah. I mean, why not? Sweater vest would look good in blue.
Yeah.
How do you look in blue? So I don't know, fellas. I feel like we've kind of kicked the tires, but all I know is here's my question to you, Kenny. When do you think we get a decision? Like, when do you think we know? It's got to move fast.
It's going. I mean, like super conservative. I'm going to say we'll have a decision by the end of the week. But if I had to guess, I would say we'll have a decision. We might have a decision by 10 o'clock tonight.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think that people fully understand what it's like.
Oh my God.
What it's going to be like when they get here. You have guys, and I'm not saying that these guys they're going to sign. Like when's the portal close?
Oh, I have no clue.
I don't remember these things.
Officially closes.
Recruiting's 24/7.
It's like a Waffle House. No, but I mean, it's just I said it in the tweet. April 22nd. But
per source, per broke.
Yep, per broke. I said it in the tweet though. It literally is. We talked to Quincy about it last year when we did our podcast with him. With his mom. It was like he talked about how fast the whole process went, and you're having like you're having 3 or 4 meetings a day with these coaches, and then all of a sudden it's like bam, and it's done, and you made your decision. Getting to a player first, and I know that money is going to play a part of it, but if money's the same in 2 different places, and you've had an extra week to talk to this kid and get in his head and figure out what he wants and what he's looking for out of his season, it's different. It's different than getting in there second and being the people that are just coming in and be like, hey, we'll throw a bag at you.
Right. Yeah. So. No, I agree. It's this sport right now is just insane.
Yeah. It's
just wild.
It's not college basketball right now. I would say is probably at its low point for me.
Yeah, I tend to agree.
Yeah.
It's still awesome. I love it. But the thing is, it was such an amazing thing for like 40 years.
Yeah.
And then now it's just in the past like 5 or 6 years, you're starting to see fan bases kind of fizzle out a little bit. I mean, that's actually not true. I've seen it here too. Like you look at some of our home games this year that we're not selling out the gym for like St. John's on a Tuesday night. Like that just blows my mind. Xavier had the second longest sellout streak in the nation behind Kansas when I was in school.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that just comes down to the college basketball isn't really, don't even think of it as student athletes anymore. Think of it as a developmental league for professional basketball. That's what it is. Right. So I think part of it's if your team's underperforming, you're saying, man, this point guard's getting paid $500,000 a year and not producing. This coach is getting paid $3 million a year. They're not getting everything done. I'm not going to give my money to the school, whatever. Yeah. I think that's part of it. But also I hear the parking situation's terrible and it takes a while for Centos to fill up.
That is actually a good question from Royer. There have been people saying that like Xavier's going after a kid in the portal or something. And it's like who's going after the kid
Well,
right
Kenny, I'm already. You have to perform the job you want before you have it. So I'm already
So
taking.
you're already
GM.
going after.
I'm calling people left and right.
That makes sense.
I'm going hard, baby.
That makes sense.
It's just gonna be an easy transition. I'm like, well, he's already doing the job. I might as well give it to him.
It's like, who's the coach? Well, we're gonna have one.
Yeah,
you want to come here or not? It shouldn't be.
You're gonna
based
tell
on
me
it.
we're not gonna have a coach? I'll be shocked.
Yeah.
I'll be shocked.
Broke said he said it's the associate AD and Mario Mercurio, and for a second there I thought he said it's the associates, and I was like, how'd you hear about that?
Yeah, what are we talking
The
about?
Roll Blob associates are reaching out.
Right.
But
No.
I honestly do probably think that
But dude,
Mercurio's probably
You gotta think though, and maybe Mario is kind of in this position right now. It would be really nice to have a GM that is like just under like a 10-year contract. Doesn't matter who the coach is. Like he's always just out there like, hey, what are our needs? What do we want? And just like always making sure that there's feelers out for players and all that stuff. Because I mean, you heard Shaka Smart talk about it. He's talking to agents during the year.
Yeah.
Which is
wild.
which is wild.
Who was it that said? I think it was Mick. He's like, most of my kids already know where they're playing next year.
Yeah, right.
It was like a couple weeks ago.
Right.
And it's Mick, so who knows how real that is.
Well,
You're exactly
and
right.
same thing with Will Wade, talking about how like he was very honest with his guys going, and it's just like, yeah, he's probably being honest with them because he's going to take some of them with him. Like
Exactly.
you're
Yeah,
going
he's taking Amir Khan with him.
right.
I'm not gonna say his nickname.
Yeah.
Even if there's a fire.
Yeah. Okay.
But Kenny too. I was gonna say something. I can't remember what it was, but yeah, it's wild times, man. It's wild times. Wild times.
Oh, yeah, it was
But
Hurley that
I
said
do want
that.
to say shout out to the people who are the permanent fixtures, like the Marios of the world, because Mario has kind of, from what I've heard, from a lot of Rick Rowing stuff, is like he's one of the guys who like keeps the ship steady because it's like you got a coach at many other programs and that's a wrap.
Yeah.
Like there's been a lot of programs that lose their coach and all right, basketball investment's done. See
Yeah.
you.
No,
Been fun.
Mario reminds, and I don't know if it's so much this now as it was, but the job that you do for TBT is like what Mario did when I was in school. That was like him all the time, 24 hours a day.
We've talked about it, Cap and I, just off camera and stuff before. Inside a Cintas Center, there's not a person that works harder than Mario.
Oh my god.
Not by far.
And I'm gonna be real with you, like when we're in the heart of TBT, like my life is hell.
Yeah.
Like it sucks.
Yeah,
And it's like for a few months before it starts.
Yeah.
That's Mario's life 24/7, 365. I don't know if I've ever been around Mario, and it's cool that you get like that week behind the scenes when you're doing TBT, which is pretty cool. But like you just kind of get a vibe of like how they are. And I never see Mario off the phone.
Yeah.
Like he'll just be talking to you. He's like, "Hey man, what's going on?" He's like, "Oh, I better take this." Like you're lucky to have a 20-second conversation with Mario.
He could just be trying to avoid
But
you.
the thing is, it's not. I was just gonna say, and it's not just you because
That's good, 'cause normally it is.
he'll do that. He'll do that to Sean Miller. Like that's just who he like.
I'm used to that treatment, so I'm glad to hear
I
that.
can't imagine his like I always imagine him being the person that has like 4,000 unread text messages.
Yeah, right. There's no way he's being honest.
No, not a chance.
There's no way. But Kenny, man, I appreciate you jumping on. I'm glad we got to do this because I'm glad we did it tonight too. Because like you said, if I'm Vegas, my over under on when we get breaking news is like 24 and a half hours, and that might even be high.
That's why we did this podcast live, because I knew if we recorded it and published it at 6 a.m. tomorrow, we'd probably miss it.
I have a lot of people's tweet notifications on right now.
Yeah.
we're ready.
But
Oh, nice, dude. I just found out that I won my 3-pick parlay. I was real big on Incarnate Wood. Incarnate Word.
We're still back.
Incarnate Wood. Wow.
Yeah, Wood. Incarnate Word. Incarnate Word, Florida Gulf Coast, and over 145 in the Queens Cleveland State game. I mean, I'm big fans of all those teams, so I had to bet on
I
them.
think it's Incarnate Word, by the way.
It
Yeah,
is.
I
What,
did, no, I said I corrected myself.
what sport is this?
Basketball.
Oh.
I mean-
What tournament are they
I
playing?
think
have no
CBI.
idea, dude.
Oh.
I
think
just
it's
saw that there
CBI.
was basketball on today, and I was like, you know what?
Are you guys casuals? It's a CBI brought to you by Purple Mattresses.
It is the purple.
literally
It is the purple
It literally
CBI.
is.
Yeah.
Casuals over here. Tony Patel's gonna be pissed. What was I gonna say? I do.
Hold on. I can give a. Go ahead and do that. I'm looking up to see who's winning the
Yeah,
bracket
this is a
challenge.
non-serious thing, but kind of a serious thing. Like I don't know if you guys have ever placed emotional hedges on Xavier games. I have. Like it's like we either win or I make money. That's I don't know. I at least get something out of it because I will pay money to watch Xavier win. So
Right,
that's kind of the
sure.
way I see it. I wish I could bet on like when there are rumors like will Sean Miller leave, like because I will pay like $300 for him not to leave, and that way if he does leave, I get $300.
Right.
You know, like
Yeah.
we need to be able to bet on that kind of stuff.
All right,
Yeah, I
so
don't
we
know.
have
Maybe
we have
we
a
can-
3-way tie for first place in the Blob Challenge. Andrew Knight, our own Ian Featherstone, and
Who just commented it's not about piss. I don't
we
know
got
what he's talking
Sashir.
about.
We got Sashir in there.
Sashir, yeah.
Yeah, that's my girlfriend's cousin.
Oh, gotcha.
Of course, he's in first. Don't look near the bottom. Please don't
I
look near the
won't.
Is it
bottom.
gonna be a family affair again?
Hey, listen to this though. My son is Kenny Freese 4C638.
Microdose.
The microdose.
The microdose, yeah. He's tied for 7th place. No, he's actually in 7th place all by himself. And
If one of
he
our
made
family
the
members-
bracket by himself. I started watching him do it, and then I had to go take a phone call. I came back and he was done. He had Auburn winning. He had McNeese beating Clemson, and he had St. John's losing in the Sweet 16. I think
So he knows ball.
he knows ball.
Oh man.
If we keep it in the family again, Kenny, we're gonna be on fraud watch.
That's true. That's true.
Well-
my brother-in-law's in second.
Oh, of course.
You want to know who
Yeah.
I had in my? You know how far I had Xavier going? Right there, Final Four.
Well,
Rhymes with oil.
well, boys, I think we have a podcast. Obviously, thanks to everybody for joining us on Twitter and YouTube. Big
Sam.
thanks to Shelby Germer,
That
of
was
course.
awesome.
That was awesome.
Great to have him on, offer insight in a professional manner. And follow him, follow Rick, follow us. We'll keep you up to date as much as possible, especially Shelby and Rick. They're on top
Yeah,
of it. They do all
We'll
day
be here.
long.
We'll be here to make you laugh.
Wouldn't shock me at all if there's an emergency space sometime in the next 24 hours.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
there will be. There
Would
will
not-
be.
And there will.
And we will.
And we will.
But
Thank you, guys.
Kenny, 2
it's-
more words.
Yeah, just real quick
Or
before
more.
before we leave, Sam McMillan just brought up a 7-footer from Santa Clara. If Xavier brings in a 7-footer this year by some freaking miracle, I'm gonna be so happy. But anyway,
Who's that big?
yeah, right.
Oh wait, visit starterking.us. Use promo
All right.
code ROLLBLOB for 15% off your first order. Get the fire started.
Get the fire started. Get the life back in the Xavier program here.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep, exactly. Now
right.
2 more words,
2
Kenny.
more words. Stay blobbing.